So at this current point, we are currently prepping for the welding process of the repair. This door is 100 years old and very, very, very rough shape. It has been broken for as long as anyone can recall. And this is the ring that the actual front boiler door mounts to. So as you can see, we are using wire wheels, wire brushes, including acid, to try to clean this as much as we can before we try to weld it. So this welding process, cast iron, is never fun to weld. It's difficult, and this is also in a round shape, which heating is always an obstacle when trying to heat and weld something like this back together. So we're trying to prep it as much as we can before we do the initial welding. So at this point, I'm checking the actual circumference of what we are working with. So I'm using a rod that the door would have originally sat on to mount the lower section. And then I am using this gauge here to check the circumference that is set to what it's supposed to be. So here we're making our adjustments, and we are going to check it again later in the video, but we wanted to make sure that it was correct before we tacked it. So at this point, we're ready to actually physically start the welding process. So my father is heating, I am welding. So today we tacked it together here, and I'm doing a final check and measurement to make sure it was perfectly round before I went ahead and started this actual welding process. As you can currently see, we're using nomacast rods. I actually had never used these rods up to this point. We have always used NI rods, so this was a first for me. I can't complain on them. They welded quite well for being a very, very old cast iron. They did okay. So welded together fine, and as you can see, I am currently fixing one piece at a time, so patience is key here. I think people tend to want to rush cast repairs too fast, and then what ends up happening is you end up damaging or cracking them and making it worse. So at this current point, we have done the repairs on the top and bottom of the first piece of this ring. And you can see that I just added a fire blanket. Now the reason behind the fire blanket is when welding cast, it is critical that the cast slowly dissipates the heat to prevent cracking and future damage. And as you can see, we cut the video and we have moved to the next section. Now we let the fire blanket sit wrapped up for a couple hours. A oven would have been better to dissipate the heat, or even a charcoal bed, but all we had at this moment was these fire blankets, so that's what we used. We are currently working on the other side, and the process will be repeated. So in this next picture, you're going to see the finished product. My father brazed the large section there on a different day. This door had a missing piece, and that's where the missing piece was. It was over 2 inches, and we didn't feel comfortable using that much welding rod and welding that big of a gap. So my father finished it with brazing. So it's got a mix of brazing and welding, but it is a complete one-piece door. So we are planning to put it back on the tractor, but in future